Hello everybody, welcome to this council meeting of the borough. I would like to invite introducing President of Guru Nanak Darbar Gurudwara Aqueduct to lead us in prayers.
Hello everyone. Hello. I'm a follower of the Sikh faith, as you can tell. I represent the Sikh Gurdwara that is across the road from here in Oaken Gates. And tomorrow we're celebrating our first Guru, the founder of Sikhism's birthday, Sri Guru Nanak Dev Ji. And I thought I'd share a small prayer of theirs. So the prayer starts like this: Ik Oankar. We believe, Sikhs believe, and we're taught that there's one God, one essence that permeates through every single living thing, one life-giving energy that comes from Him, and after this life journey is complete, we'll all return back to Him. Satnam, God's name is the embodiment of truth. We should live and work honestly. Karta Purkh, God is the creator of everything. Nirbhau, God is fearless. We should fear no one, but also we shouldn't do the opposite. We shouldn't intimidate or bully. We should not try to put fear into others. Nirvair, God is without hate, because God is within everything, so He can't hate Himself. The same way we should try and find that God within each other. Akal Murat, God will not die. His presence is constant. Ajuni, God is not reborn, although, ironically, His energy flows through all living things. Sebang, God shares His illumination to all through the sun, the moon, the stars, and His life force within all human beings that give each thing life. Guru Prasad, God can be found through the grace of the Guru or a teacher. Jap, we should meditate on Him to learn more about His qualities and become like Him. Ad Sach, God was true and present at the beginning of time. Jagad Sach, God was true throughout all of the ages to now. Hai Bhi Sach, God is right in this moment, true and present. And Nanak Hosi Bhi Sach, Guru Nanak Dev Ji says that God will always be present and always be true. I'd like to thank everyone for listening, and Raj Mehta from the Interfaith Council, who we work with, for all the opportunities that we get to help the community, and wish you all the best in your meeting. Hopefully it's more exciting than this prayer. Thank you very much. Goodbye.
I would like to ask Democratic Services Officer to give their apologies.
Yes, Speaker, we have apologies from Councillor Mark Boylan, Vanessa Holt, Terry Kiernan, Jackie Loveridge, Bill Tomlinson, Paul Watling and David Wright.
Before we start, just can I remind members that in the interest of the COVID security, please could you refrain from touching the microphones. Can I ask a Democratic to confirm declarations? At any?
No declarations received in advance, Speaker.
Are there any declarations from the audience? Right, right.
Yes, thank you, Madam Speaker. 12.2, because I receive remuneration for the COVID vaccination programme, I won't be taking part and will leave the hall.
On item 12A, notice of motion, and that I will not be taking part in the discussion, nor will I be voting on it. Thank you.
Yes, Councillor Reynolds.
Exactly the same. On that particular motion, I'm a member of the Joint HOSC and also the Health and Scrutiny Board.
Anyone else? No? Item 4, can I have a proposer to confirm the minutes from the previous meeting held on the 22nd of July, please? Second. Moved. Good. Thank you, Councillor Davies. Can't do.
Take a vote.
Sorry?
Just take a vote.
Yes, yes. We'll take the vote on that then.
All those in favour?
Moved and seconded. All in favour?
Against? All those against?
All those against that? Nobody.
Abstentions? Abstentions?
Abstentions? No. Right. Right, I would now like to invite the Leader, Councillor Sean Davis, to address the meeting, please.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. It's been quite some time since we came together as a full council, and it's been a very busy few months for the borough. But before I start to talk about that, I would like to remember Sir David Amos, who, of course, was murdered since we last met. And I know that colleagues from right across the chamber will be affected by that murder. And I do hope that we, as a council and as a political community, do learn about the behaviours that we ought to keep in mind when we're dealing with one another and making sure that debate that we have, passionate, often disagreeing with one another, is perfectly legitimate, but that we do that in the name of democracy, and we are stronger as a country because of our democratic values. We're clearly... I'm sorry that statement seems to be controversial with Councillor Burrell. We're clearly still trying to resume some normality after the national lockdowns, but I've been delighted to get out and about over the summer to make the most of everything on our doorstep, including high streets reopening, events in the town park, and our wonderful green and open spaces. It makes me really proud that we have such a high quality provision for our residents and businesses, but also that we are a magnet for visitors who want to see themselves in Telford Wrekin enjoying the facilities that we have to offer. We also recognise that Telford is a great place to live, work, study and visit. We know other organisations think this too, and that's why we were absolutely delighted to win the APSI Council of the Year award in September, the Cooperative Council of the Year a few months before, and we are very proud of Joe Britton, our Executive Director for Children's Services, who also won the Director of the Year in the MJ Awards, and for the Council to be shortlisted for the Local Authority of the Year at those same awards. And indeed, only this last week, we've been named the Planning Authority of the Year for the work that we do to protect green and open spaces. Something that, regardless of political persuasion, I do hope that we can be proud of the organisation that we are members of, and also proud of the staff who work for us. Building on our reputation as a council that is on the side of local people, in September, myself and my team were pleased to announce a £16 million of extra investments in key areas designed to help our borough bounce back from the pandemic. Because we listen to what people have told us, we know what's important to them. That's why the additional funding will go towards projects that will make this borough a cleaner, greener, safer and more enjoyable place to live and to work. All of this on top of £50 million already going into neighbourhood and enforcement services. We're moving forward in our fight against climate change, enhancing our precious green and open spaces and funding local community initiatives. We're also putting more money into our high streets, our parks and our buildings on our brilliant events programme, as well as making sure that the borough is a really clean place for us to enjoy. We are all delivering this as a team. Excellent services, ensuring that we protect, care and invest in the borough that we are proud to call home, despite the lack of central government funding. Only this week, Madam Deputy Speaker, it's been confirmed that the government has the highest levels of taxation since the 1950s, at the same time that funding to local councils has fallen to the lowest since the 1950s. You pay more and you get less. We've worked hard to secure funding from the government at every opportunity that is available to us, including £23 million from the Towns Fund, That will play a significant part in the £100 million project that we're putting together for Station Quarter, for funding in Oaken Gate and Wellington. And indeed, we stepped in and topped up the funding that was made available under that fund. That complements the £5 million of money that we'll be putting into our high streets right across the borough, from Ironbridge to Newport and all the high streets in between. However, we need more money, more support, and our fair funding from this government. It cannot be right, Madam Deputy Speaker, that areas close to us are getting 70, 80, 90 million pounds under the levelling up funding when this council has no chance whatsoever. So we will work hard together, I hope, to redouble our efforts to push the government for proper and significant funding for Telford and Wrekin. Finally, over the past few days, we have marked remembrance right across the borough. I have been moved and gratified to see how we, as a community, has come together. Generations standing... Indeed. Yeah. Generations coming together to remember those who have fallen. And as we look ahead to Christmas, which is less than 6 weeks away, we recognise that COVID is still not gone away. So I hope that we all have a safe, enjoyable and COVID-free Christmas. Thank you, members.
Thank you. We will shortly be moving on to the Mayor's announcements, which is an item 6 on the agenda. But before we do, I would like to explain that this evening the Mayor will be carrying out the Mayor's charity cheque handover. So I'll now hand you over to our Mayor.
Thank you. I would like to ask members to note the engagements undertaken since the last council meeting and those forthcoming engagements and events shown on the list circulated to the members. I would also like to take the opportunity in acknowledging remembrance services across the borough that took place last week, making the 76th anniversary since the end of the Second World War. It was an honour for me to be as Mayor of the Borough of the Telford Wrekin on behalf of the all war veterans, all military personnel, the Royal British Legion, all faith groups, and all our communities within the borough to attend and lay wreaths at the Armistice Day Remembrance Service on Thursday, the 11th of November, and the Maidley Remembrance Service and Parade on Sunday, the 14th of November, to remember all those who volunteered, sacrificed, served, fought, and those sadly who lost their lives for the ultimate sacrifice for our freedom. We thank you. We will never forget you. We will remember you. Usually at the annual general meeting, the mayor has the opportunity to present checks to their chosen charities. Due to the pandemic, that wasn't possible last year or at the AGM earlier this year. I would now like to take the opportunity in welcoming and inviting representatives from the Jane Sargent Foundation and Telford Mine to come forward to receive their checks from the Mayor Charity Appeal of 2020-21, entitled Care and Wellbeing. Thank you.
Support others who are dealing with cancer. We're self-funding, we meet once a month to offer care, support, understanding to local people affected by cancer. If I therefore take this opportunity to spread the word for us, about us. Please do for us, pass the support to Telford. Any other meetings?
I would like to invite Councillor Stephen Reynolds, former Mayor of 2019 to 2020, to present his Mayor's charity check and to say a few words. Thank you.
I would just like to thank everybody for this opportunity. 2 years ago, we had to curtail a lot of their charity raising for the YMCA due to COVID restrictions and everything else, and we all missed out on having our ball down at Madeley. However, I say it's just an honour to present this cheque to the YMCA, and it's an absolute joy to see Mandy here, who over the last couple of years has also suffering from all, from all sorts, and it's just lovely to see her here to accept the cheque on behalf of the YMCA.
Thank you, Councillor Dewar and Reynolds, and thank you to Telford Mind, the Jane Sargent Foundation and the YMCA for attending here tonight. You are welcome to stay to the remainder of the evening, but feel free to leave if you would prefer. Right. We now move on to item 7, public questions, and I would like to invite Kate Barnes to step up to the microphone and ask her question, please.
Thank you. In a mail shot from the Council on the 13th of September, £2 million was pledged to parks. On behalf of the residents of Aqueduct Ward, can we ask how this funding will be allocated across the borough for play parks? And can the Cabinet member ensure that the right allocation is rewarded to the Dawley Hamlets play parks so they reach the standard of the others across the borough?
Thank you. And can I ask Councillor Carol Ely to answer, please?
Thank you,
Very much for your question, Mrs Barnes. I was very proud to be able to announce the investment of £2 million in our open spaces and also an additional £1 million for parks. These investments announced in October form part of our £60 million investment pledge that this administration is delivering as we continue to protect, care and invest to create a better borough. With the £2 million investment, we'll be working with local communities, friends groups, town and parish councils, ward members and other interested parties to enhance our existing open spaces, as well as designate more local nature reserves to add to the 17 that we've already identified, and also designate more areas as green guarantee sites. The £1 million Pride in Our Parks Fund is targeted at increasing the number of green flag accredited sites so that we can ensure that our residents have access to the best quality open spaces. So that is an external accreditation that gives us that assurance. And with both funds, we're maximising our investment through other sources of funding to make sure that we've got the best impact across the borough. So for Dawley and Aqueduct and the parish of Dawley Hamlets, that means investments in Dawley Hamlets Local Nature Reserve for things like biodiversity enhancements and access improvements as championed by the Friends Group, in particular the Chair, Bob Wennington. Also, the delivery of that will start early in 2022 and includes funding secured through the Great Crested Newt District Licensing Scheme, which was recently recognised as part of the Council's Award of Planning Authority of the Year by the Chartered Institute of Ecology and Environmental Management. And I'd like to thank Dawley Hamlets Parish Council, who I know are also committing funding. We'll also be delivering on the management plan for Dawley Park to ensure this park maintains its green flag status. We're in the process of developing a new play strategy for the borough. We have over 120 play areas across the borough, so that strategy will help us target that investment. But in the meantime, in partnership with the Parish Council and following the championing of these areas by ward members, councillors Ian Priest, Andy Burford and Raj Mehta, we're investing £30,000 in play areas in the Dawley Hamlets and Dawley and Aqueduct area with new equipment at Paget Drive and Spring Village, and there's another piece of equipment to come at Spring Village. So I hope that answers the question, and if you do require any more information, you can contact me outside of the meeting.
And thank you, Kate, for your answer. Thank you. We move to item 8 now, the Cabinet decisions made since the last meeting of the Council. Are there any questions of clarification? Not debate, but clarity only from key members. Any?
Stephen Burrell.
Yes. Yes.
Thank you, Chair. On item 2.1.2, the NDP for Tiverton and Cherrington Parish, I wondered if he was in attendance, whether the Cabinet member would be of the awareness that the referendum was held a week ago today and was approved by residents by 94% with a turnout of 28%, which collective members will be, I'm sure, quite aware is rather a high turnout for an NDP referendum, and whether the appropriate Cabinet member would make sure that in the future that such a mandate is given its due deference within planning determinations made by this local planning authority in future planning determinations within the parish of Tiverton and Cherrington. Thank you, Chair.
Deputy Madam Speaker, the Cabinet member responsible is not in the meeting today, but I'll ensure that the comments of Councillor Burrell are fed to him. And of course, the local plan will, together with the relevant planning policies and legislation, it will be taken into consideration when planning officers and the Plans Board make any decisions relevant to that parish or any other parish. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Dugmore.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Can't touch it. So 2.1.3 on the customer feedback and complaints report. As the response rate is quite low, I'd like to know what the Cabinet member regards as a statistically relevant response rate on which to base major financial decisions.
No, not a key decision. Shall I move on? Yeah. Right, now we move on to item 9.1, and I would like to invite Councillor Ray Evans to propose the recommendations.
Formally moved, Madam Speaker.
And seconded. Are there any questions or comments? Can I have a show of hands in favour of the proposals? Any abstentions?
And those against.
Any
Against.
against, yes, sorry.
That's carried.
Right, that's carried, thank you. Now we move on to item 10, which is Charles Smith to propose the recommendation.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. This is agenda item 10A, I assume. And it's the appointment of external auditors for April 2023. I know it's 2 years away, but we have to make those decisions now. The Council's current external auditor is Grant Thornton, and this appointment has been made through the Public Sector Audit Appointment Limited procurement route, as previously agreed by the Audit Committee. The current agreement with Grant Thornton ends after the audit of the financial year 22-23 has been completed. Therefore, the Council will need to appoint a new external auditor for the audit of the financial year 2023-24 accounts onwards. In accordance with Regulation 19 of the Local Audit Appointing Person Regulations 2015, a principal authority will need to make the decision to opt into the sector-led body at full council. That's why we're here tonight. There are three options by which this can be achieved, each with varying risks and opportunities. 1, to make a standalone appointment. 2, to set up a joint auditor panel, local joint procurement arrangements. Or 3, opt into a sector-led body. The financial officers recommended at the last audit committee that we consider option 3, that's join a sector-led body. After debate, the audit committee also confirmed they felt option 3 was the best way forward. And therefore, I move the recommendation, Chair, Madam Speaker, at recommendation 2.1, full council. That's on page 29 of the report, of the agenda.
Is that seconded? Yeah. Thank you. Any comments?
Move to the vote.
No? No?
So just move straight to the vote.
Yes, we'll go to the vote then. There's no comments. Right, straight to the vote. Show of hands, all those against.
All those in favour.
Please show your hands.
All those in favour.
And all those against? Any abstentions?
All those in favour.
All those in favour? Oh, good. Got there.
That's carried.
That's carried. Sorry about that. Right. We move now to item 10.2, and I wish to invite Councillor Chris Turley to propose the recommendation.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. It is a statutory requirement to review the Council's statement of gambling licensing policy every 3 years. The review has been undertaken by Public Protection and the revised document has been considered by the Licensing Committee. A consultation was carried out between the 1st of July 2021 to the 31st of August 2021. No representations were received. Members are made aware the policy remains the same except for the addition in Section 12 regarding gaming machines. This is in line with an amendment the Gambling Commission have made to their guidance. Gambling Act 2005 Statement of Licensing Principles. At its meeting held on the 12th of October 2021, the Licensing Committee made the following recommendations to Council. The Statement of Gambling Licensing Policy for the Gaming Act 2005 be presented to full Council for approval on the 18th of November 2021. The policy, if approved by full council, will be published on the 3rd of January 2022 and will take effect from the 31st of January 2022. Madam Deputy Speaker, I therefore move the recommendation.
Is there a seconder? You've seconded it. Thank you. Any questions or comments? Veronica Fletcher. Yes, Veronica Fletcher.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I have 4 questions, if I may ask, and I also would like to thank very much the report. The first question is, there are, on the response on page 41, where it says responsible authorities, included Telford Wrekin Safeguarding Children's Board, but there is no space there for the Telford Wrekin Safeguarding Adult Boards. It's not included in the responsible authorities. Is there a reason for this, please? And would you like me to ask all the other questions at the same time? I have 3. I note that on a number of pages and paragraphs, e.g. 37, 39, 40, 41, 43, 48, that significant weight and emphasis is given for the protection of children and vulnerable people. And those people who gamble more than they want to, people who gamble beyond their means, and various other reasons. So what I would like to ask is, what warning signs are in place in all gambling facilities regarding gambling and the effects of it? What help is provided by those who make their monies from gambling? What help does the council provide? And what measures are in place to combat the excesses of gambling? We all know that there are excessive gambling in every area that can destroy lives and families. Thank you.
Want to reply, Councillor?
Thank you, Councillor Fletcher. I'm currently not in a position at this moment to answer your questions, but if you can pass them through to me, I will ensure that the licensing officer will reply to your questions.
It's a great concern, I know for this council as well, of what is happening in our community, so thank you. And as long as every member can have a copy of that reply, I'd be pleased. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor.
Show of hands in favour? Against? Abstentions? Carried. Right, next we move on to item 11. We have 11 questions in total, so I would like to remind members that the questions have been circulated in advance and tabled and also shown on the screen. Can those asking the questions consider whether or not they need to read it out or simply refer to the screen, please? A number of questions this evening are addressed to David Wright, and David Wright submitted his apologies in his absence. Another cabinet member is going to respond. So there are 30 minutes for item 11. I would wish to invite Peter Scott to ask his question.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. It is better on the screen, isn't it? There are more and more estates being built in Telford and Wrekin area, and many are waiting, in some cases, hoping to be adopted by the council. What future plans are there to adopt any of the unadopted estates? If there are plans, specifically which estates?
Thank you, Councillor Scott, and I'd like to take the opportunity to
answer this question on behalf of Councillor Wright. I think it's important to give some background to the adoption process before answering the specifics of your question. Clearly, as a council, we fully understand the frustration from residents, parish and town councils and ward members regarding the adoption of roads. We share a frustration that developers tend to shy away from communicating with residents as to why roads have not yet been adopted. We are bound by provisions under the Highways Act, which outlines specific processes for adoption of privately constructed roads, such as public highways, and we must operate in accordance with that legislation. Basically, the Council have no statutory or legal powers to enforce the adoption of newly constructed roads. These provisions in the Act apply to every authority in the country, and many areas across the country face the same challenges. It is common that newly constructed roads will at some point be adopted by the authority, but before they do, they must be completed to the required standard and meet the design criteria which is clearly set out. Unfortunately, the onus does not lie with developers to close out these agreements on full adoption of a road. The Council continues to do as much as it can to ensure agreements are signed and the works are technically appraised and inspected throughout the build, but we have a clear procedure to follow and an obligation to ensure that what is being constructed is a suitable asset to be taken on by the Council. As I've alluded to previously, the Council has limited control over the rate of progress, as this is often driven by commercial decisions made within the developer organisation. Just to give you some background as some reasons as to why roads take time to be adopted, examples can include sewers beneath the road having not been adopted by Severn Trent Water, a developer still using roads within the estate, developers holding off from completion in their interests of maintaining ransom land to a future connecting development parcel, a developer building upon a number of unadopted sites locally in order to obtain better commercial value when appointing a finished contractor, and a developer having gone out of business. I know time's up. Just to answer specifics, recently we've completed adoptions in Muxton, Lawley Square, Park Lawley Phase 6, Sneds Hill, Sutton Hill and Newport, and imminently Lawley Phase 3, 6, 7, 8, and areas in Wellington, Ranelagh, Mallinsley, Doseley, Dawley and Tiverton.
Thank you very much. I did have a follow-up question, but it's a bit more specific to the office of Councillor Wright, so I will write to him instead. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll go next one there. Can I invite Peter Scott to answer his second question?
Thank you, yeah. The Council kindly agreed to survey its car parks with a view of looking at possible improvements. Can the Cabinet Member for Transport please give us an update? And this is in relation to car parks in Newport.
Thank you, Councillor Scott. I know that I sat in a meeting actually with you on the 23rd of September to discuss car parking concerns in Newport. I know in that meeting we also shared a common agreement that continuation of free parking in our council-owned car parks, where that is currently the case, is a fantastic thing, and it's great that we've got that ongoing commitment as an administration. I know following that meeting and as agreed, the council-owned car parks in Newport were surveyed. That was on Friday the 22nd of October, and our team is currently awaiting the data back from that survey. They are aware of the importance of this data and are doing everything they can to return this back to us as soon as possible. Surveys of other car parks across the borough are also underway. We will use that data as a factual basis to develop ideas for consideration by ward members and partners, including town and parish councils. They will endeavour to do this as soon as our team will endeavour to do this as soon as they are possible, and patience around this will be welcomed.
Thank you. Yeah, I do have a quick follow-up, if you don't mind. At the same meeting we discussed on the 23rd of September, and in many, many previous meetings, we've discussed the possibility of a review of the 40-minute spaces, car parking spaces on the High Street, Lower Bar and St Mary's Street, but sadly it keeps being kicked into the long grass. So can I have an indication, please, that we can review this situation, because there's a lot of people have a lot of concern about the limited time on the parking spaces.
Thank you, Peter. I think whilst we did discuss that in the meeting, the starting point that we all agreed on was that we will do this survey, we will use that data as a factual basis, an informed basis to make decisions going forward, including review of the parking that you've alluded to there.
Okay, thank you. I will come back to you. Thank you.
I wish to invite Councillor Graham Cook to ask his question.
Can the Cabinet Member for Economy, Housing, Transport and Infrastructure please outline the proposal for the Town's Fund, including information on the allocation for Wellington and Open Gates, and extra financial support that Telford Wrekin have agreed to commit in order to bridge the gap in the fund after government cut the original 25 million announced?
Thank you, Councillor Cook. I've been asked to respond in Councillor Wright's absence. The Towns Fund is intended by the government to drive economic growth. But this council, Madam Deputy Speaker, has had a decade of achievement of growing economic growth with a £50 million growth fund, multi-million pounds investments in roads and footpaths, and multi-million pound investments in our business support functions. We bidded for the Towns Fund. We asked the government for £25 million, the maximum amount of money that was available under the Towns Fund, and we were one of around 100 towns to receive that funding. As I mentioned, Madam Deputy Speaker, although we asked for £25 million, this level of funding was cut by the government, unfortunately, which led to a shortfall in the fund. Telford Wrekin Council has made a conscious decision to step in and step up to support the funding. In line with the funding for Station Quarter, which I've already mentioned, around £100 million of match funding, the Council has also provided more money for Oaken Gates and Wellington, and that's thanks to the representations made by councillors in those areas. This money will build on top of the money that's already gone into the high streets in Oaken Gates and in Wellington, and also upgrade the facilities, including the one that we are standing in right now. In Wellington in particular, we're looking to work with the market further to develop the fantastic offer in the market square, the other buildings and attractions that we've already seen, and a significant amount of business grants that have gone to businesses in Oaken Gates and in Wellington and across the borough. Madam Deputy Speaker, we are a business-winning, business-supporting council. Labour is on your side.
Supplementary.
Thank you for that, Councillor Davis. No supplement.
Right, I would like to invite Councillor Kuldip Sahota to ask his question.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. This is not for David Wright. This is for Richard Overton, for a change. I'm alarmed to hear that the police front counter service at Telford Mellonsgate Police Station is to have its hours reduced. This has also been raised with me by very concerned residents, and some of whom do not have access to internet, and when raising a police complaint on telephone, often frustrated not being able to get through 101. In view of this, could Councillor Richard Overton, Cabinet Member for Enforcement, Community Safety and Customer Service, tell me what the Council's view is on the Police and Crime Commissioner's proposal related to this, and what the Council is doing to address the community safety issues? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Thank you, Councillor Slaughter, for your question. I must start by saying that I also share your concerns regarding the proposed reduction in opening hours of the front desk at Mellonsgate Police Station. I understand that West Mercia Police have sought views on the public on proposed changes to front counter opening days and times, and as a result of initial feedback on the launch of the survey, it was amended and extended in order to seek wider views on non-emergency public contact with the police. This revised survey closed on Friday the 29th of October, and we await a response on the results. The Council strongly opposes a reduction in opening hours of the front desk, as this facility provides our residents and communities with the opportunity to speak face-to-face with West Mercia Police. Traditional policing, you might say, but one that I know residents of Telford Wrekin will no doubt welcome. Members of this Council will be aware of our £2.5 million Safer and Stronger Communities programme launched in April this year. In the last few months, we have heard time and time again requests from our community of greater police presence and patrols to build community confidence and provide reassurance. As a council, we are doing what we can to bolster our resources that have seen a significant increase in our neighbourhood enforcement officers through the Community Action Team model with partnering town and parish councils. I note reference in the Police Inquiry Commissioner's draft Safer West Mercia plan that there has been an increase in police officers since 2016. But here in Telford, this increase is nowhere near where it needs to be. We need the Police Inquiry Commission to put more police on our streets and deliver a safer borough for our residents. Not only will this respond to concerns that I keep hearing from residents, but it will support the Council is committed to protect, care and invest to create a better borough. Any proposals to reduce office opening times is against the views that I keep hearing and does little to support those who need it most, especially women and girls who may need to seek that safe space.
No supplementary. He covered it all.
Thank you. I would like to invite Councillor John Thompson to ask the question to Ray Evans.
I hope that all members are aware that on the 25th of November is the White Ribbon Day. The White Ribbon is a part of the global white movement to end male violence against women. Telford and Wrekin Council is part of the movement. We are proud to be accredited as a White Ribbon town since 2011. In this year, when the murder of Sarah Everard brought women's experience of men's violence to the forefront of everyone's mind, could Councillor Ray Evans, the Cabinet champion against domestic abuse, please provide an update on the awareness and raising activities that are taking place in the borough over the next 16 days leading up to the 25th of November? Thank you.
Councillor Thompson. As you say, Telford and Wrekin Council have been accredited as a white ribbon status since 2011, demonstrating how serious we are about tackling this issue, which is fundamental to part of our commitment to protect and care for everyone in our borough. Thursday the 25th of November is White Ribbon Day, and we will be using this and the following 16 days of action to bring our communities and partners together with us to say no to violence against women and girls. The programme will include a social media campaign building on last year's great success, which saw in excess of 40,000 interactions recorded, including women coming forward to seek help. Southwater will be lit up in white and the white ribbon flag will be raised on Addenbrooke House. On the 1st of December, a webinar entitled Domestic Abuse, Childhood and How it Impacts Adulthood will be delivered to 40 delegates. On the 8th of December, active bystander training will be delivered to 120 delegates. Finally, during the 16 days of action, white ribbon logo stickers will be placed on fleet vehicles, fire appliances, Arriva buses, West Mercia police vehicles and taxis to raise awareness, for which we commend our partner organisations. Our message is clear. Every woman, man and child has the right to live a free from violence and abuse life. As a council, we remain committed to this issue, which goes beyond the 16 days of action, and may I say also beyond politics, and we will of course be continuing our ongoing work with our partners and communities to raise awareness through educational programmes and specialist support.
Is there a supplementary?
Yes, if I may. I'm just wondering, where can members of the public obtain the badges from? And if they can't obtain the badges, they can also get the white ribbons from haberdashery shops. Just wondering if Councillor Ray Evans can provide any information where the public can provide with the badges. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Thompson. And I will ask the officers to make sure that there is a supply on the front desk at Addenbrooke House. There is also a website for White Ribbon UK where you can obtain various goods to demonstrate your commitment and indeed sign up to the pledge. So I would encourage people to do that. Thank you for your question.
Thank you. Now can I ask Councillor Chris Turley to ask the question to Andy Burt.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. The Cabinet Member for Health and Social Care will no doubt be aware of the frustrations of our residents who are unable to get a GP appointment. GP numbers are declining year on year, and yet they are being asked to take on more and more tasks and clear the backlog. Can the Cabinet member confirm what residents should do if they can't access a GP appointment, and will he write to local MPs and the government to lobby for more much-needed resources and investment for our primary healthcare system?
Councillor Burford.
Thank you, Councillor Turley, for what, in my opinion, is probably the most important question here this evening, and is certainly on the minds of so many of our residents. I think we're all acutely aware of the frustrations of our residents who are unable often to get a timely GP appointment or even to get through on the phone. The Health and Wellbeing Board requested an update on GP access from the NHS Clinical Commissioning Group in September, given the serious concerns regarding residents' poor access to GP services. I think it's important to bear in mind two things. Firstly, it is the case that some GP practices are managing the current high levels of demand better than others, and the Health and Wellbeing Board were given assurances by the CCG that a range of detailed actions were underway to improve the situation and bring more consistency of response. The Health and Wellbeing Board, chaired by my colleague Councillor Middleton, has been promised regular progress reports. The CCG can assist, as can PALS, the Patients' Advice and Liaison Service, although this is an extra hurdle for a resident who is struggling to access a GP appointment. However, the second point to bear in mind is that the national staffing crisis affecting health and social care includes GPs. Despite promises from the government of extra GPs, the picture nationally is deteriorating as the pressures mount and more leave or choose to work part-time. It is impossible to exaggerate the seriousness of this situation. Make no mistake, it represents a catastrophic failure of investment and planning by this government. I hope most observing this meeting will have seen the letter we sent recently to the Secretary of State, asking for urgent intervention and resources across primary care, including community health services. Our residents in Telford and Wrekin deserve better than this.
2 minutes is up.
I'm finished. Thank you.
Supplementary.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. No supplementary.
Next, I'd like to invite Councillor Ian Fletcher to ask his question, please.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. My question is to the Cabinet Member for Economy, Housing, Transport and Infrastructure. Will the Cabinet Member please advise members the current position regarding the review of the Telford local plan? Is the review still to take place now or in the near distant future?
Thank you, Councillor Fletcher, for your question. I'm answering this on behalf of Councillor Wright. The Council commenced a review of the Telford and Wrekin local plan in January 2020 and consulted on issues and options in autumn 2020. We were ready to consult on our draft plan in the summer of this year. However, during the latter part of 2020, the Government consulted on a planning white paper, Planning for the Future. The Government has not yet formally responded to the white paper consultation. The Government set out its intention to bring planning legislation to Parliament this autumn based on the changes set out in the white paper. In the light of this, the Council determined to pause the formal stages of the review process to await further details of legislative proposals. This position was formally announced to Cabinet on the 27th of May. Following the recent ministerial reshuffle and the creation of the new Department for Levelling Up Housing and Communities, led by the Right Honourable Michael Gove, we understand Government intends a complete rethink of previous proposals. We continue to await the Government's response and proposals. The Council has an adopted local plan which runs until 2031. There is an intent to restart the process at an appropriate point, and once the detail of legislation is clear, officers will advise on the likely implications for the review, and we will propose a new timeline to a refreshed local development scheme.
Do you have a supplementary?
Yes, Madam Deputy Speaker. When you recommenced the work on the local plan, following the declaration of the climate change emergency in 2019, will you consider incorporating climate change measures within the revised local plan? I'm thinking of electric vehicle points, solar panels, district heating systems, everything to cut down and reduce the climate effect of excess use. Thank you.
Want to answer that?
Yeah, thank you, Ian, for your supplementary. As you know, the Conservatives, when they got into power, ditched all these sort of proposals, but we are committed to dealing with climate change, and we will look at everything to make sure that we meet our objectives.
Could I invite Councillor Ian Priest to ask his question?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. This is a question to Councillor Eileen Collier. I'm delighted to see that the Labour administration has announced that there will be a swimming pool to be delivered in the Dawley area, which I'm sure many of the residents will be very pleased to hear, especially celebrating the 150th anniversary of the greatest achievement of Dawley, Matthew Captain Webb. What I want to ask Eileen is, can the Cabinet Minister for Leisure give us any further updates on when this can be completed, please?
Councillor Collier.
Thank you, Councillor Priest, for your question. This is in the early stages, and the initial consultation has been the first step to gauge the appetite of residents for a new facility in the area. We had a high number of responses, and this included responses from all 30 wards in the borough. There was a strong support for a new pool, with 84% of respondents strongly agreeing that it would benefit the local community, and 95% of respondents indicating that they or a family member would like to swim more often. Interestingly, 89% of respondents said that they travel by car to the pool they currently use. The two wards that will benefit most from this new pool have some of the highest rates of need for leisure facilities. We know that it is important for residents to access these facilities locally, either by foot or bicycle if possible. We are, as far as I'm aware, one of the only councils in the country to offer free swimming to all under 25s with the TLC card, which I announced back in October, plus swimming for just £1 for all over 50s. We want as many residents in the borough to be able to make the most of these fabulous leisure offers and have equal opportunity to lead healthy lifestyles. This new pool will give more people easier access to one of our council-run facilities and allow more people to access our brilliant offers. In readiness for the anniversary of Captain Webb's crossing of the Channel, we are working to deliver a new pool for the residents in the Dawley area and the wider community. Work is underway with feasibility work to support its delivery, which will look at the facility specification and exact location. I would like to just take this opportunity to thank Councillor Ian Priest, Andy Burford, Kuldip Sahota, Sean Davis and Raj Mehta for the lobbying that they did to secure this investment, and this is the positive difference that a Labour council can make.
Do you have a comment?
Fantastic and exciting news. Thank you very much. No more questions.
Now, I'd like to invite Councillor Gilly Reynolds to put a question to Carol Haley.
Thank you. In the battle to prevent climate breakdown, it is clear that we need more renewable energy generation. But there are challenges to doing this in the right way and in the right place. The House of Commons Environmental Audit Committee estimates by 2030, 2.2 million homes could be powered by community energy schemes, saving 2.5 million tonnes of CO2 every year. However, current rules mean the regulation costs of setting up community energy schemes make such initiatives unviable. The local electricity bill aims to address this by establishing a right to local supply, enabling community-owned renewable energy schemes to sell their power directly to local people. A number of councils have given their support to the bill. Will Telford Wrekin Council do the same? Thank you.
Thank you very much for your question. I think this is a really exciting bill that's sort of starting its very early stages through Parliament. As you'll know, through our climate change grant, we've been actually have funded a number of community schemes, so things like solar panels on community centres, for example, and wouldn't it be wonderful if those schemes could be slightly grown so that they have a surplus and could also then supply local neighbouring houses. But at the moment, as you say, the current regulations mean that the costs of becoming an energy supplier, which you would be in the regulation around that, is too great that it weights everything towards you know, the big corporations and doesn't allow the kind of renewable revolution in this country that we actually need. So yes, I think, you know, as an administration, we certainly would support the bill, but the difference is that we won't make the difference. It's actually by MPs signing up to this so that it progresses through the House. Currently, there are around 270 MPs from all parties that have pledged their support to help the bill progress. I have noted the last time I checked, which was earlier today, that the MPs for Telford and the Wrekin have not pledged their support, and therefore be happy to write to both MPs to ask that they do support this bill, because I do think it would be a great benefit to our communities and our battle against climate change.
Thank you. Do you have a supplementary?
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, I would like to invite Councillor Adrian Lawrence for this question.
Thank you, Deputy Madam Speaker. A councillor's ability to ask for planning applications to be considered by the Planning Committee, known as green carding, is a fundamental part of the democratic process, giving residents confidence in the independence and robustness of the planning process. Will the Cabinet Member ensure that all such requests are granted, please?
Sir Lawrence, I'm answering on behalf of David Wright. You will recall that the Council has an adopted system to call in a planning application, which was considered and adopted by the Planning Committee in July 2013. The adopted process has set procedures and criteria that specify that requests can only be made by the ward member or town or parish council relevant to the application. Requests from neighbouring members and neighbouring town and parish councils can only be permitted at the Chair's discretion. Requests must be completed in a timely manner within the set consultation periods for the application and must have valid planning reasons. If the request does not meet the criteria, the party will be notified of the reasons why, and members are encouraged to discuss matters with case officers directly to ensure that they address the criteria. All applications are, of course, determined by the Planning Committee or officers and are determined against adopted planning policies at both national and local level, which have been through clear democratic processes. I am therefore confident that all decisions taken are robust and independent.
Do you have a supplementary?
I do, and thanks for that answer. My supplementary is, can we have a list of the number of applications that have been rejected? Because historically there were very few, and now there seem to be quite a lot. Thank you.
Yes, I can certainly provide you with that. I do understand that some of the call-ins made by members of the opposition have fallen outside the process and procedures, which I've already outlined to you. In each case, those people have received a detailed explanation from the planning officers and CEO. You may find it helpful to note that our award-winning planning team are about to deliver a series of planning workshops for town and parish councillors. So anyone who's still struggling to understand the process may wish to attend these or raise the issue with a Democratic Services Support Officer during their discussions about training needs.
That's no one on this one. Right, come to Councillor Nigel Dugmore.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Can the Cabinet Member explain why after 3... This is to Councillor Shirley Reynolds, Cabinet Member for Children, Young People, Education and Lifelong Learning. Can the Cabinet Member explain why after 3 years the safe route to school along Donington Wood Way between Muxton and Donington is still not safe for children to use, especially during the winter months, being unable to attract attention from passing traffic should a child need assistance or be in danger?
Councillor Reynolds.
Thank you, Councillor Dugmore, for your question. As a council, we are committed to providing safe and sustainable routes to school. Not only is this good for the environment, but it also supports our young people, along with their parents and carers, to healthy, active lifestyles. I am aware of the concerns along sections of footpath on the Donington Wood Way. The Council has previously invested over £600,000 into Safer Routes to Schools programme, which complements our annual investment of £600,000 into the highway safety schemes and £760,000 sustainable travel projects. I am sure you are aware that there is street lighting along this footpath, and each year our grounds and cleansing team undertake extensive hedge trimming works to open up the area and reduce the height of them. I'm pleased to confirm this maintenance work has recently been completed, and to enhance the safety of all pedestrians, we've also installed a number of mobile CCTV cameras in the Donington and Donington Wood area, specifically one that views the underpass at the Donington Wood Way. These mobile cameras feed into our new CCTV control room in Oaten Gates, and if you haven't been to look at it, I would ask that you go and have a look. It is an amazing system, part of our investment to protect, care and invest across the borough. In addition to this, yesterday afternoon, officers visited the area to explore what opportunity there is for further enhancement, and I'm pleased to report that the team will also undertake further hedge works to open up sections of the hedgerow, and this will be followed by street lighting enhancements. I hope this provides reassurance that we are committed to providing safe walking routes, not just to school, but actually for all users.
Well said.
Do you have a supplementary, Councillor?
Certainly do, Madam Deputy Speaker. It's taken 3 years, but finally we've done it. Can the Cabinet member confirm that all designated safe routes to school will have an annual maintenance inspection to ensure that they are fit for purpose? Because this hasn't happened in my ward.
I'm interested how you managed to make it 3 years. We've only actually been in 2019 when we first did this. So to me, 2019 to now is actually only 2 years. But it was only 2019 that we announced our investment into the Safer Routes to Schools. So it isn't possibly 3 years, and which you didn't vote for, as I've just been reminded. This is what I would suggest is basic ward work. This is something that you, as a councillor for that area, when you're doing your ward walks up and down, would see this maintenance needs doing, and then you report it. But as you are fully aware, we do have an annual maintenance programme, and all our schools are encouraged to provide a safe travel plan with practical steps for all the children in the area. So that is something that happens all the time. But I'm quite glad you've raised this, because children's safety should be at the heart of everything we do. And it's given me a great opportunity to ask every member in the room if they will consider funding road safety education for their wards. I've actually done this in my ward for all my primary schools, educating all the local children. I used my ward fund to fund the network management road safety team to actually work with the children on road safety education, the Be Bright, Be Seen workshops, and promoting pedestrian road safety. So please, can I ask members, maybe think about using your ward money to actually help support the children in your wards.
Thank you. That draws the questions to a close. We'll move on to item 12.1. Can I call on Councillor Sean Davis to move the motion as detailed on the agenda?
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker, and I hope this is a non-controversial motion that the whole Chamber can get behind. Madam Deputy Speaker, before this pandemic, our NHS was in crisis, with our acute hospital site in special measures since 2018, with ambulances queuing up outside the A&E of the Princess Royal Hospital. Staff shortages resulting in, as Jeremy Hunt says, a workforce crisis. And, Madam Deputy Speaker, more delay and dither from the government around funding the investment that we need in our A&E and in our health sector here in Telford and Wrekin. And, Madam Deputy Speaker, those issues have been profounded by COVID. Of course they have. But we are now seeing a crisis locally in our health system that has never been seen before. I'm hearing from residents almost every day waiting 8, 9 even more hours for an ambulance to arrive at their door. And indeed, only yesterday I was speaking to a resident of this ward who said, thankfully, Councillor Davis, I only had to wait 2 hours for an ambulance for my husband because of the delays that are facing the system. And, Madam Deputy Speaker, I'm also hearing almost every day of people unable to get to see their GP. GP appointments, as we've already heard earlier on in this meeting, Madam Deputy Speaker, are really, really difficult to obtain. And that's because of the pressure that GPs are under as a result of lack of work flow and recruitment and retention. And, Madam Deputy Speaker, we're seeing the huge crisis in the healthcare system right across the country, not just here in Telford and Wrekin and Shropshire. This council referred Future Fit to the then Secretary of State for Health, Matthew Hancock, who gave the green light for the A&E in Telford to be closed and for the Women and Children's Unit to be transferred to Shrewsbury. It is time for the new Health Secretary, a Midlands MP who only lives an hour or so away from here, to come to Telford and Wrekin and see for himself the huge pressures that we are facing here as a health system. It is not good enough, Madam Deputy Speaker, for me or my family, or for you or your family, or indeed this community, to have a failing health system. Members of our NHS workforce are working their socks off, Madam Deputy Speaker, but they have both hands tied behind their back because of the lack of resource and investment. And I think it's about time that this Health Secretary, the new Health Secretary, took a personal interest in what's happening here in Telford and Wrekin. It cannot be right. It cannot be right, some of the conditions that our community are finding themselves in, and we need urgent intervention. And repeating my calls from 2020, when I, together with the leader of Shropshire Council, the then leader of Shropshire Council, Peter Nutting, offered to work together across the political and geographical divide for the investment that we require from the government for a super hospital. One that's fairly and centrally located between Telford and Shrewsbury, state-of-the-art, not pitching one community against another, but putting a real solution on the table. Rejected at the time by the Health Secretary, Matthew Hancock, but we want to work together once more. Unfortunately, members of Parliament and other councillors have poo-pooed that idea, talking about a three-site solution seen in Northumberland and deliberately, or maybe not deliberately, maybe just not understanding the basic difference between a single site, one hospital, compared to three. We know that members of Parliament here in Telford and Wrekin and Shropshire are very good at lobbying. They are very good at lobbying to secure funding for themselves. They are very good at securing second and third and fourth jobs. All we ask, Madam Deputy Speaker, is that they work with us to lobby for additional investment so that we can have a healthcare system fit for the 21st century, fit for my friends, fit for your friends and your family, fit for the community. Because at the moment what we have is a second-class system which is putting lives at risk. And I do hope that we can come together this evening to send a message to the new Health Secretary that it's time for investment. It's time to see the investment that is going elsewhere come here to Telford and Wrekin and Shropshire. No longer should we be taken for granted, and no longer should we wait for members of Parliament and this government to invest and believe in this borough.
A seconder for that.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Our NHS has come under an enormous amount of pressure the last 18 months. The dedication and service of our NHS doctors, nurses and all workers in the health system has been amazing, and I applaud them for their hard work, commitment and care. The strain on our NHS is at breaking point. Our two hospitals are at capacity. Staff demoralised and tired, and what do? We continue to talk about the Future Fit proposals. This is not a solution to these issues. We all know this proposal will downgrade our A&E, take away our £28 million Women's and Children's Centre, and in fact make Telford, Wrekin and East Shropshire patients the second-rate citizens when it comes to services. our hospital a mere day surgery centre, well, we can't allow that to happen. I know the current situation well. My mum, a couple of weeks ago, waiting 15 hours for an ambulance, and then over 2 hours inside the ambulance at A&E. This is not the service we expect, but it is something we are accepting due to the pressures and strain on our health system. Future Fit will not help this, it will make it worse. It's simply not good enough. We need a solution that will deliver for all our residents and our families who live here. We need our MPs to come together and work with us to retain our hospital. As Councillor Davies said, they need to lobby hard for their constituents, not for their business interests like some Tory MPs. Join us in fighting for our hospital, fighting for better outcomes for all residents and making sure our emergency and hospital services are fit for the 21st century. This Conservative government need to listen and take action, not give lip services to our NHS, but invest wholeheartedly in our NHS. Not pretend they care, but show they care. This can only be done by scrapping the massive waste of money that is Future Fit. We have been saying for so long, it's not fit for purpose and it's not fit for our futures.
Yes. Call on Councillor Bentley.
Speaker, and may I congratulate you on the exemplary way you've conducted this meeting tonight and on your appearance and your nomination. I know. I'm full of flattery. I would like to ask the Council to respectfully consider not an amendment but an inclusion into this motion. And that inclusion should read, as from the paper comments that were published a week ago, we should be bold as a borough, working together, cross-party, cross-council and cross-constituency to put a very clear offer to the government about securing a £1 billion investment for a single-site super hospital, a world-class hospital located between Telford and Shrewsbury, which will serve this county for a generation to come. And I think that can fit after paragraph 1. And I ask you respectfully to consider this amendment as tabled, not as an alternative to the current substantive, but as an enhancement of the Leader's own supportive narration within his motion. For the Secretary of State to urgently readdress and intervene to end with immediate effect the debacle of Future Fit, whose costs have spiralled out of control, now in excess of 500 million plus and rising, without a conclusion in sight. No one can argue with his comments in this motion. Our hospitals are under intense pressure. No one can argue, due to the continuing pandemic and onset of winter viruses, that this winter will be one of extreme difficulty. No one can argue that the stories of ambulance queuing for hours outside our NHS hospitals is acceptable and undignified for patients and staff. Throughout the pandemic, we have applauded our cherished National Health staff and volunteers for their dedication and performance of duty. They have and continue to be exceptional. They have continued even though we see evidence of tiredness and exhaustion, and some are demoralised, but they don't give up. Without doubt, the NHS is in crisis and potentially a breaking point. Locally, we question if the Future Fit proposals would ever rectify the current situation. As my amendment reads, and my colleagues in this Council's opposition are fully supportive of the call for an end of Future Fit as a process, let us come together to unite and to invite the Secretary of State to the borough. We will state our case face to face, present him with undisputed facts which we believe Future Fit has consistently ignored or failed to recognise. We need to retain the much needed 24/7 A&E and the Women and Children's Centre at the PRH until the super hospital is built. A hospital not only fit for generations to come, but one that supports the climate change agenda, similar to what is happening at New Cross Hospital.
Councillor Bentley, time is...
Well, I've nearly finished, thank you. Part of my time was congratulating you, if you remember. Which is totally self-sustainable with renewable energy sufficient insulation and appropriate heating. Members, come together within this chamber. End the uncertainty for Telford and Wrekin. Within this this has been emotive far too long, standing issue, and support the amendment.
Right, so I would like to ask the monitoring officers just to address the minutes.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I believe Councillor Bentley's asked for an amendment to the motion that's on the screen right now, but the Constitution states that amendments need to be moved on notice with at least 4 hours working notice, and we hadn't had any notice of an amendment to be proposed by 2 p.m. today, unfortunately.
Right. Right, we go back to Doug Moore. Councillor Doug Moore.
Madam Deputy Speaker, no one is disputing the pressures on our local health services. Indeed, as part of those services, as I work in them, I see things from a different angle to many in this chamber. As well as the so-called normal pressures, there are the pressures as a result of the delay in the reorganisation of our local health services and the sudden and enormous strain of the pandemic. I would therefore like to pay tribute to all of my colleagues for continuing to deliver the best service they can under the circumstances, which will likely to be the most challenging of their careers. Yes, we all agree that the Future Fit programme as it stands is not fit for purpose, and with the 11th hour acceptance of the need to build a new hospital raises a faint glimmer of hope that the proposals can be altered to produce better outcomes, though it's taken 6 years. In that time, a new hospital could have been established. 6 years of confusion from the administration. First, it was retained both hospitals as they were. Then it was future fit with the A&E at Telford, and a rejection of the proposed new hospital between Telford and Shrewsbury. And now, there's really, as we saw in the last couple of weeks, it's no future fit and a new hospital between the two towns. Maybe. Mr. Speaker, Madam Deputy Speaker, over that time, at every election, we've seen leaflets with Save Our Hospital or the A&E. Yet it is this administration's shifting stance and unwillingness to work together that has ensured that the Future Fit proposals are the only ones on the table, and we know that these proposals are flawed. As we heard just a few days ago, the leader thought that maybe his colleagues agree with him, like with this side of the chamber, that a new hospital is the best solution. Well, Sean, this is one party that you're late for, and there are no awards this time, I'm afraid. Mr. Speaker, Madam Deputy Speaker, sorry, didn't realise you were doing it. There is no doubt that the reason why we are in this state of limbo regarding hospital reorganisation is due to the constant change of direction, allowing decisions to be taken that are not necessarily in the best interests of our residents. The credibility of those representing Telford and Wrekin during negotiations has been severely damaged, and this is a failure of the leadership. Can we be clear on what the proposals are? Are we pressing for a new hospital? Are we going to work for cross-party? Are we offering to work with the local MPs, even though you criticise them at every end and turn? If a new hospital is not forthcoming, what's the plan B? The stakes are getting higher, and if we're not careful, without clear objectives, we'll have no say and no influence over the decisions taken, and we'll be in a more parlous state than we are now. But it's all down to the problems that we've had all the way through. So if we are going to come together and we are going to fight for Telford and Wrekin, well then, let's see it.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. As others have said this evening, we want to join with members across the House in reiterating our support for the fantastic NHS workers who have done so much for us in Telford and Wrekin and the wider community, especially throughout this pandemic. Hospital staff who now find themselves battling with the added pressures of dealing with the incredible backlog of in-hospital care. Added to which now we've, as others have mentioned, see the nearly daily queues of ambulances outside our A&Es at both hospitals in our area. So to me and to our group, it's pretty clear downgrading our services would come at a great cost to our residents as the NHS continues to struggle to fight through the torrid backlog. Our group have always supported and indeed campaigned alongside colleagues across the House, across the chamber, I apologise, in retaining A&E services at Telford, at PRH and the Women and Children's Centre, and continue to call for retaining said services at PRH. That's as well as campaigning for greater investment into our social care system, because let's be honest, without adequate funding into that system, it's only going to further exacerbate the situations in our A&Es. We therefore are very supportive of any action that this council is taking to highlight not just our council concerns, but the concerns of our residents in respect to this motion. So we'll be fully supportive of this motion. Thank you.
Councillor Arnold, England.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I want to make my comments relevant to saving the A&E and the Children's Unit at the Princess Royal. Yes, the arguments are wider, but this is the bit that I was involved in many, many years ago. I was Vice Chairman of Telford Hospital Action Committee. We made representation and went on a ministerial deputation, and we gained our hospital. We did that by working with local businesses, trade unions, councils, MOD. In other words, a group made the representation to government, and that is what I would like us to come out of this debate, is that we will work with others in order to retain those vital services. And as you know, I've said this a number of times, we have the largest growing population in the West Midlands. We have a very large industrial base, including MOD logistics. We have a high birth rate and high levels of social deprivation, and so on and so on, and we need our services. So I fully support the motion. What I would also ask is for the mover to consider Councillor Bentley's comments, right, about including the single hospital. That was part of the original discussion with Future Fit, right? Because, and I read it in the Shropshire Star almost every day, right? Someone has a serious accident or a heart attack and they're sent off to the West Midlands. They're not dealt with in Shropshire. We don't have the high-level services in Shropshire. People have to go to women and children's units in Birmingham and Stoke and elsewhere. By going for that single £1 billion hospital, we would raise the standards in Shropshire, for Shropshire and Powys and whoever else needs them. We would raise the standards and people wouldn't be at risk by having to fly or travel into the West Midlands and other counties. So there is an argument for the single unit, very much so, and I'd like us to incorporate that. But there is also the argument that we all work together, right, and make another deputation to Westminster with whoever we can get. Right? And don't forget, one of the reasons why Shrewsbury is seen as the main site is because they are the senior MPs. Telford and Wrekin MPs are seen as junior and they do as they're told. So we need to go above them in order to try and get a better result for our borough. Thank you.
Councillor Culdiff.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. As the motion states, our National Health Service is in deep crisis locally and nationally, and it must go on. It must not go on like this. As it has already been said and stated, people are waiting in pain for their ambulance for hours on end. I had a friend last week in Hadley, and she had to wait 4 hours because her husband was very sick. And she phoned me. I said, I'm afraid there's nothing I can do because I don't have authority over the ambulances. And then eventually he did end up in there. Anyway, people are waiting in A&E as well. And the government target is a 95% within 4 hours. I'm afraid that target has fallen down to 65% at the moment, which is really, really sad, as I'd say. And of course, our elderlies are waiting on the phone to make appointment to see GPs, as it has already been mentioned. I had a phone call from people as well, said they wanted to make an appointment with a GP, and they're waiting on the phone and so on. What can they do? It's not just in Telford and Wrekin, but it's also all over the country. In September, there were 5.86 million people waiting on the waiting list nationally. That's the highest ever there has been, and it is predicted that it's likely to go up. And locally, in our 2 hospitals, that's Shrewsbury and Telford, the figure is 30,784 people are on the waiting list. That was last September. Of course, the figures are 2 months old. It must have gone up by now. And then these are the people who are waiting. And then there are 2,522 more than a year. And then there are more than 2 years as well. And figures and saying go on. 1 in 10 people in England are now being forced to wait in pain for a National Health Service care. Both of our hospitals has been rated inadequate and put in special measure. Madam Deputy Speaker, I'm running out of time. What I want to know is, where are our local MPs? Their silence is deafening. Why aren't they going out to the number 10 and kicking the door down and do what they were elected to do? And by his own admission, our Prime Minister has said that he's good at crashing the cars. This is awful, Madam Speaker. National Health Service, this awful waiting time is not the fault of our hard-working paramedics, doctors and nursing. National Health Service has been overstretched for years over the underfunding and failure to recruit the staff. We better do something, otherwise we're going to have a cold, cold winter, Madam Speaker. Thank you.
Okay, there has been several members who have commented on this item, and I have several who also want to speak. So I'm closing the list now. So I go to Councillor Burford.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I find it really interesting to hear the Leader of the Opposition taking the same tack as the Shrewsbury MP in blaming this council for the delays in Future Fit. What a nerve. What a nerve. This council, would that we could haven't delayed Future Fit for 1 second. The Secretary of State has consistently failed to consider any alternative. The Shropshire MPs have consistently failed to consider any alternative. That Future Fit has trundled on with all its mistakes, all its erroneous thinking, without any bow to us, any nod to us whatsoever. We have always said we were willing to consider alternatives. We haven't even been able to get the parties round the table. Let's be clear. And what the Leader of the Opposition is actually doing is deflecting the blame from this government and its failures in the NHS. That's where the issues really lie here. Future Fit, by the way, is not for now. What we should and need to be debating is what's going to be happening this winter. We need an aggressive plan to stop this slide and to help our residents. Our local NHS, supported by our social care staff, have come up with a range of measures to divert patients from needing hospital care and keep them looked after in the community. I don't think it's enough. That most of those things are already happening, and I don't think it's enough. The government seems like a rabbit caught in the headlights. All we hear is the mantra of how many billions they've provided, not what is needed. What's needed is not just money, but a plan for shoring up the workforce. It needs to be short-term, with significant financial incentives to recruit and retain staff, and it needs to be long-term in terms of a workforce plan that gives recognition, training, pay, career and status in proper measure for health and care workers. It's not too late. The absence of that is a primary root cause of the problems we are facing and is a result of 10 years of government failure, with the chickens finally coming home to roost with COVID. We need action now to change the way we care for people, with a massive and immediate focus on proactive admission avoidance. That's what we need to be debating right now, not future fit and its fallacies. Beef up those teams that are doing that work on this now with the resources and the staff they need. Get moving on this. It's government's job to do this. They're failing us. They're failing our residents. Thank you.
Councillor Gemma Offland.
Thanks, Deputy Speaker, Council. So I can actually talk from a national health professional worker perspective, being at the forefront of COVID-19. Patients waiting at A&E doors, patients waiting in ambulances, patients discharged home without care and support and being readmitted. Patients being unwell, unable to know which way to turn. So for me, let's put this into perspective. Future fit is not fit for purpose, and this is why. We have ambulances outside of both of our hospitals already queuing up out through the door. This is without winter pressures. So the impact of shutting one A&E over another is only going to cause death. And what that is in terms of our residents. For example, if they were having a stroke, there is an hour turnaround. So to go in an ambulance from Shrewsbury to Telford or Telford to Shrewsbury, that can have a detrimental impact. And that impact is going to take longer. They discharge from hospital, they then have to have social care, that then impacts another service. So I personally think, and yes, I will agree, we need better services, not removing services. So I believe that both sites should have all the services they need to meet the residents' needs. And whether that's women's and children's, whether that's cancer services, whether that's stroke services, whether that's trauma care if you're in an RTC and you don't have to be sent all the way over to Stoke, because again, that can have a detrimental impact on our residents. So I'm quite clear, it's not an argument. Future fit is not fit for purpose, and we need to look at ways in which we cannot go through winter pressures like we have done for the last decades. Thank you.
Councillor Nelson.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. And may I take this opportunity to wish Madam Speaker a speedy recovery. May I also reassure my recently exiled Newport colleague that if he needs assistance with a cross-party measure, I would only be too happy to offer to help. I offer this in part because Jo Cox was right when she said there is more that unites us than divides us. So I hope very much in the spirit of Councillor Arnold England's excellent speech, where he counselled us all to work together and to have one group. It became clear to me during the recent Code of Conduct training that respect for each other needs to be at the heart of our actions outside and inside this chamber. We are in a position of leadership in this borough and in our communities. We have an example to set. In our plural system, this opposition have a formal and serious role. We call the administration to account, but respectfully, not willfully. Where we can, we should seek to build on and contribute to those areas where we can agree. As an aside, I want personally to live up to this. On member development and climate change, I am trying to. To this end, it would be no secret that we and I would be supportive of the administration's motion. It essentially calls for defence of the status quo, 24-hour consultant-led A&E, and retention of women children's services at PRH. The demographics are compelling. The centre of population gravity is moving to Telford, not Shrewsbury. And meaning no disrespect in the context of what I've said, but if the Welsh want nationhood, and I, despite loving the United Kingdom, would have to support the free determination of peoples, then let them, and NHS Wales take responsibility for Powys. Stop distorting the future health of Shropshire. I would therefore support the status quo until there is something better, until a clear leader has been shown that I respect, with a compelling vision of a better future. Our leader has expressed this vision, and I will take him at his word. A new hospital with the scale the health professionals call for, one hospital serving 500,000 people, and at an equitable location, not potentially landlocked, as the PRH would be bound to become, and not with potentially insuperable maintenance problems like Royal Shrewsbury may have. And let NHS Wales take responsibility for their own. So support the administration motion, but aspire for more. Embrace the spirit of our offer for an inclusion which is calling for a better future, a state-of-the-art and equitably located new hospital. Thank you.
Councillor Lawrence.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'll be brief, thankfully. So, I mean, it's such a shame tonight that we can't have a unity with a motion that we can all support. There's a lot of merit in what you've put forward there, but we would like a different motion that we can all buy into. What you've suggested, Sean, is an about-face for yourself, but it's something that we, and I personally do support. A single hospital is a solution that can work for all of the communities. There's always been this animosity between Shrewsbury and Telford. I think a single large hospital will be a good solution for that. If it's located close to the border, that can work for everybody and can put an end to all of this constant sort of disputes between everybody. So I wish you would reconsider and find a wording that we can all support. But there we go. There we go. We can still put another amendment forward. Okay.
Have you finished?
Well, rules are rules, but it's an important issue, isn't it? We can make an exception if you wish. Okay, thank you.
Order. Please, may I have a little bit of order, please? Right. Councillor Eade.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Well, here we are again, aren't we? Yet another in the very long line of future fit debates, which seemingly get this authority nowhere at all. Not once has there been a unified response by this council, despite offers from others to help achieve a brand new hospital between Telford and Shrewsbury. Staggeringly, this council's administration has had 4 different stances over future fit outcomes. Firstly was a decision under Councillor Sahota to sit back and say and do nothing, as it was, and I quote, already in the bag. The PRH would get the A&E emergency centre because it already had the women and children's unit. And those two disciplines must go hand in hand. Sean, try and act your age and not your shoe size, please. Where one goes, of course, the other has to follow. When that crass approach failed, the administration's policy became an A&E on both sites. When that policy failed, it was an A&E provision at Telford only. And when that policy failed, we finally came to building a new hospital between Shrewsbury and Telford. That was 2 weeks ago. But where we are now, well, who actually knows? Hopefully, you've finally woken up to the possibility of a brand new, all singing, all dancing, single-site hospital. Exactly 4 years ago this month, I made the visit to the new emergency hospital at Cramlington in Northumberland, along with Councillor Dugmore, David Sandbach and Mark Pritchard MP. That superb facility was delivered when councils, MPs, which you clearly, hang on, Mars, which you clearly cannot do here. The MPs, the clinicians and the councils put aside their differences and delivered a hospital which was described by Sir Bruce Keogh as seeing the future. You talk now, and I quote, about being bold and working together. Well, why weren't you bold or willing to work together for a single-site hospital in November 2017? Why didn't you go and see Cramlington for yourself, as we did? The invite was there to you to do so. Why didn't you accept the offer from the Trust Chief Executive for him to visit Telford and Wrekin if you couldn't be bothered to travel up north yourself? Why couldn't your council even read or acknowledge receipt of our report? I mean, the silence was absolutely deafening. That report was quite detailed. It was put together by David Sandbach, a long-time health campaigner and ex-chief exec of our own PRH hospital. Speaker, I'm going to resubmit that report to the council, and this time I will expect a response, and hopefully a positive response. However, as the saying goes, of course, this isn't getting the job done. And I accept the arguments around future fit.
Councillor Aid, time is up.
Well, with your indulgence, Madam Speaker, following Councillor Davis's recent comments in the Star and what Arnold England has just said, I want to submit a slight amendment.
Will you please sit down?
Look, I was interrupted. I was disturbed from saying what I wanted to.
Sitting down.
Look, I want to submit an amendment. You have the opportunity to do it. And it is to add the words under the paragraph until a single-site hospital is built in between Telford and Shrewsbury to serve both communities.
Not them, I'm speaking, and I'm asking you to sit down.
Well, do you know what? You allowed them to interrupt me all the way through that, and you haven't given any leeway at all. Now, you're the Speaker, you have the power and the opportunity to allow a slight amendment to that motion.
You
and
have
I
the
suggest
time.
you consider it, and then we can both get on.
No, he's not bullying me. I'm asking him to sit down.
Get on with the fight together.
Right. I'm calling on now. I am calling on the last speaker now. Councillor Shirley Reynolds.
Thank you, Deputy Madam Speaker. I will be quick. There's been a lot said tonight. Some of it I agree with, an awful lot I don't agree with. First of all, I do want to thank all our NHS staff right across not only the borough but across the country. They have been amazing. Our NHS have been under such pressure during the last 2 years, and the staff are on their knees. But the issue isn't just about the workload during the pandemic. It's the actual, and we need to recognise this, the chronic underfunding of over the last decade of this Tory government. That is at the heart of everything that's the problem. Our hospital is needed just as much now, well, in fact, more than it was needed when it was fought for many years ago. Future Fit, as has been said, Future Fit is not fit for purpose. We have 5 Tory MPs, currently only 4 Tory MPs, who should be serving our communities better. It's a sad indictment if they're not able to save our A&E hospital services. Actions speak louder than words. Platitudes and mistruths don't save lives. An urgent review is needed now. I support this motion. I hope everybody across the floor supports this motion. The request is for an urgent intervention by the Secretary of State to ensure RPRH retains its 24/7 A&E and Women and Children's Centre. Stop playing one town against each other. Telford deserves better.
Thank you. Before we move to the vote, Councillor Davis, do you want to say anything further?
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Rhodes.
Wanted to speak, and now you're not preventing her from doing so.
No, I hadn't got on my list, and we've been checking it carefully that we've caught everyone.
Thank you.
No, well, we've had all the speakers now, so I... No. Yes, sorry. Yes.
So, it's back to how things were. The bully boy tactics, the throwing of insults, the name-calling. It's back to how we were, and maybe the rumours are true. We're back to square one in terms of the way in which we're dealing with each other. I wholeheartedly agree with almost every word that Councillor Tim Nelson said, and I'm confused as to why there's a difference in the approach of Conservative members opposite. This motion is a motion that I hoped would bring us together. I've listened to private conversations that I've had with members opposite about the frame of the motion to ensure that it can be supported. And we bring forward a motion like this, published many weeks ago, no approach by the members opposite to seek to amend it, but they try and play the games on the council floor. And let me just tell members opposite that this is more important than petty politics, because this is happening up and down the country, not just in Telford Wrekin and in Shropshire, not because of Future Fit. This is happening up and down the country, and this is about coming together and saying to the government to unite. I'll give you a lesson, Councillor Dugmore. The man sitting behind you, giving you the orders throughout this meeting, lost 3 elections on the bounce, and if you continue to listen to him, you'll lose a 4th. This is about working together to put forward a proposition to government for our fair share. That's all. Our fair share. That's all. Not talking about members of Parliament, not demanding action from the government, simply getting our fair share. Simply requesting a meeting. Simply requesting a meeting from the Health Secretary. That's all we want. All we want. And people, Nigel, please. People don't listen. They don't listen to the fact that you try and blame me personally or the Labour Council for this. They know there's 5 Conservative MPs. They know there's a Conservative. They know all that. There's a Labour Council, a Conservative Council. People look through that. Get past first base. Get past first base. Work with us. You know as well as I do that the decision for investment of this scale doesn't come down to this council. It comes down to the Health Secretary and the government. Yeah. Boris Johnson, when he was last here in Telford, said that the A&E in Telford was going to be safe. Yeah. He left. It's not safe. This is the words that Councillor Bentley mentioned were almost, I think, a direct quote from what I was saying in the local media. I'll reflect those words in the letter. I'll ask Nigel and the other group leaders to sign the letter alongside me. But get past first base. It's pathetic. It's pathetic. Fling the mud at me. Fling the mud at this council. Be like the other Conservative MPs. It doesn't bother me. On this point, Councillor, on this point, please support the motion. I ask for a recorded vote.
It needs to be supported by 7 people. Oh, hold on. Yeah.
Right, agreed.
So read this bit.
I will ask the monitoring officer to call out the names, and when you hear your name, please confirm whether you are in favour, against, or wish to abstain. Right.
Thank you, Deputy Madam Speaker. Just before we start, there's been a number of members who left during the debate, and unfortunately, therefore, they won't be able to vote on the motion. I'll read out the names of those who are able to vote. If you can, indicate if you're for, against, or abstain.
Right, I only missed the apparently the sniping. I listened to all the things, so I'm not allowed to vote.
Councillor Tomlinson, the rules around voting on motions is clear in that you need to hear all of the debate to be able to vote, so to make sure that you can make
all
a
I
decision.
missed was a sniping between both groups, and I can't vote.
I'll move on to the recorded vote. Councillor Bentley. Councillor Bentley. No, this is for the vote, Councillor Bentley.
Yes, sir.
Sorry, Councillor Bentley, 4. Councillor Blundell. Councillor Burford. Councillor Callier. Councillor Eric Carter. Councillor Lee Carter. Councillor Cook. Councillor Davies. Councillor Dugmore. Councillor Eade. Councillor Nathan England. Councillor Evans. Councillor Ian Fletcher. Councillor Veronica Fletcher. Councillor Healy. Councillor Hoskin. Councillor Yanker. Councillor Jawar. Councillor Jones. Councillor Lavery. Councillor Lawrence. Councillor McClements. Councillor Middleton. Councillor Murray. Councillor Nelson. Councillor Offland. Councillor Overton. Councillor Priest. Councillor Gilly Reynolds. Councillor Shirley Reynolds. Councillor Rhodes.
4.
Councillor Sahota. Councillor Scott. Councillor Seymour. Councillor Charles Smith. Councillor Malcolm Smith. Councillor Thompson. Councillor Turley. Councillor White. Yes, of course. That's 38 votes for, 1 abstention. The motion is carried.
Well, then we'll go on now to the next item. It's a slight change in the agenda about where Councillor Stephen Bentley is going to propose this motion. And I invite him to put it.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker, Deputy Speaker, whatever. This council strongly advises all its residents to listen to the advice of medical experts and take the opportunity of a COVID-19 and flu vaccination, both for the protection of themselves, friends and families, and also to reduce the risk of transition of the virus. We also urge our NHS leaders to work with the authority to provide more walk-in vaccination centres in order to reduce, I can't even read that word, waiting times to administer more vaccinations, which we consider to be essential in protecting the future medical, our frontline medical profession.
Is there a second? Yes, it has been seconded, yes.
Madam Speaker, I rise to second the motion. I just want to say a couple of things in doing so. We've heard so much in the papers and the news all about the COVID vaccine, but of course the flu vaccination is now being offered again in conjunction with COVID-19. And I just wanted to highlight a couple of the merits of it. What the flu vaccine does, it gives you a 26% reduction in the chance of an ICU admission, so going into critical care, and a 31% reduction in the chance of death as a result of catching the flu. And it also has many benefits in reducing the risk of respiratory infection. And it has a really significant reduction in the risk of childhood death as well from flu-related conditions. So I really would urge all residents to take up the option of the COVID booster and the flu vaccine if offered. And we really should, where possible, increase the number of walk-in centres, because that makes it easier and more accessible and increases the take-up rate of the vaccine. So I'd urge residents to follow the motion. Thank you.
Councillor Burford.
we're pleased to support this motion. Council is fully behind the drive to get as many residents as possible vaccinated as the most effective response to the COVID pandemic and to save lives. We should say, I think, the Council's public health teams and communication teams in particular have supported and continue to support NHS colleagues from Shropshire, Telford and Wrekin with the rollout of the vaccination. I think we've got a record second to none in that in terms of the cooperation between us. As the Cabinet Member for Health and Social Care, I'm really proud of that. The offer of walk-in and pop-up clinics to supplement the main vaccination centres has been an important part of the programme. It improves access for residents in community settings and is a key part of the inequalities agenda. It is something that the Council, on behalf of residents, are continuing to champion. The public health team have supported the NHS to deliver vaccine clinics at workplaces, community venues and events throughout 2021. The latest series of pop-up walk-in clinics that the Council has asked the NHS to deliver started at Southwater 1 on the first weekend in November. And that's an out-of-school offer for 12 to 15-year-olds who were not able to benefit from vaccinations when the school immunisation team visited their schools. This clinic, which will continue throughout November and December, is proving popular. There are also walk-in clinics being organised at the Interfaith Council office in Wellington during November. We are grateful for the work of our school immunisation services, GPs and pharmacies in delivering booked and walk-in services for COVID and flu vaccinations. And we will continue to work with the NHS vaccination team to ensure we get the best opportunities for our residents. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Veronica Fletcher, please.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. COVID-19 is still with us with a vengeance. It is vital that everyone who is eligible has the 3 jabs. We think of the work that's been undertaken to bring this vaccine to us, saving lives and protecting us all from it. It is a very, very terrible thing. And I thank all doctors, surgeries, pharmacies for what they've done.
Sure, right. Councillor Eric Carter.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I will make it very brief. I might just add, yes, I've had all the jabs and the flu jabs, so fine. What I would say, and I'm speaking now with my hat on as chair of the Shropshire and Wrekin Fire Authority, how pleased I am and proud I am that over 200 of our members have been volunteers at vaccination centres and 69 members have actually vaccinated people. So I want to make everybody aware that the fire service has played a major role, and if this thing carries on, it will continue to play a major role. And it's the fire service and the fire authority, and there are members here who are members like myself, who can be extremely proud of what we have done and what we will continue to do in the future. Thank you.
Councillor Kelly Millington.
I just wanted to support what Councillor Andy Burford said. Our local public health response, in my opinion, has been fantastic through COVID and the vaccination programme. Really proud, as I'm sure Councillor Evans is. We've also got a fantastic vaccination centre in Woodside, and what we've seen is remarkable volunteers attending that, and the community's really pulled together. I think it's really important that as many people can get vaccinated, and you know, as a lot of us this side of the room are still wearing masks, it's good to see, and it's important that people are still wearing masks and getting vaccinated. So I'd just like to really support that and thank everybody that's been involved.
Councillor Nielsen.
Here goes without notes, and I'd just like to thank Councillor Davies for his comments earlier. though I think you've probably signed my political suicide note, so thank you for that. If no one else on our side were going to, I certainly want to commend the actions of Telford Wrekin Council in respect to the vaccination programme throughout this pandemic. And I want to do that firstly because my experience of it for my 3 vaccinations I've had has been exemplary. The privilege I had to be able to contribute to the vaccination programme in Newport, the statistics that we've achieved in this borough of the degrees of vaccination, which have been very high, particularly amongst more vulnerable groups, but also because of public confidence. Early on in the pandemic, from the statistics in Our World in Data, the numbers of people, the proportion of people in Britain who were vaccine sceptical were quite low, and nationally compared very well at around only 10% of people who were vaccine sceptical in Britain. Now that percentage is 20%, so something has changed. And I believe it's really, really important that we all speak with one voice so the public can have as much confidence as they possibly can that we are, for instance, in this chamber and this borough, completely united behind, one, the benefits of the vaccines, and for people like me who weren't immunised against measles and mumps and got measles and mumps, and measles isn't much fun. You're in a darkened room for 2 weeks because you don't want your optic nerve damaged. My younger brother, immunised, didn't get measles and mumps, and he's 3 inches taller than me. I don't know if these are linked. But fast forward to now, I know someone at the moment who is ill with COVID at this moment. They are very glad they're immunised, okay? Because they're quite sure that if they hadn't been, they would be significantly more ill. So these are just 2 anecdotal examples of the worth of vaccination. But I wanted to absolutely reinforce, certainly from my point of view, and I'm sure from the group's point of view, that we commend the work of the borough now and in the future with regard to vaccination programmes. And I hope that reinforces public confidence in the vaccines. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Raj. Yes.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I just want to say COVID is real. We've lost family members, myself, from youngsters to elderly to this pandemic. I feel emotional mentioning this, but I feel very strongly about the vaccine, that we're all having it. As the chair of the Interfaith Council, we as a board took the decision and have met, and we will be starting a vaccination centre tomorrow at our building in Wellington, and every Friday it's been with the support of this council. And all the communities are getting advised, and there is videos going out in different languages to obviously get them numbers up and have the vaccine. It is vital and it is very important. Thank you.
Councillor
of the Shropshire and Wrekin Fire Authority, I like to support what Councillor Eric Carter has said, our chair. The Shropshire firemen and women, they've been exceptional helping out there with all the vaccinations and so on. They've even given us a special badge to all the fire authorities, so I fully back his statement. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Councillor White.
Where I echo the thanks to the NHS, I echo the thanks to the fire brigade and the people who also are vital to that was all those volunteers who showed you to the seats, washed the seats, cleaned them down, and did all the menial work without any recognition, without anything. And I would really seriously like to thank them. But I have to say, the biggest concern I have of the whole thing is this policy of sacking people because they don't have it. We are risking putting hundreds of hours of training, of learning, of knowledge on the dole when we desperately need every ounce of that in the NHS at the present moment. And even worse, when we talk about the care sector, who is vastly under demand at the present moment, and we are risking losing many, many people for that. There are many jobs better paid they can go to at the present moment,
and the likelihood is they will go. But we need to try and encourage people to stay there. So I'm not saying it's wrong, I'm just saying that I'm extremely uncomfortable with sacking people because they have a choice, a conviction that says, for all the time, all the training I've been doing, I cannot put that into my system.
Councillor Fletcher, I don't know if you had actually finished, if there's something else you wanted to say. I don't think you finished, but you're all right. Okay. Right. Councillor Bentley, do you want to say anything else?
I don't really want to add anything to anything that's been said, and I'd like to thank all the members for all the positive comments and certainly reiterate what Councillor Nelson said. I personally have had all 3 vaccinations now, including the booster. Never had any kind of reaction to them at all, except the first one where I was a bit tired, but I think that was because Man United were on the telly. But that aside, this is protecting, it is safeguarding, and it is moving us back to a normal way of life. Thank you all for supporting it. I move the vote.
Thank you. Can I have a show of hands in favour of the motions? Those against? Abstain? That's carried. That's carried. Thank you. Well, thank you all for attending. The next full meeting is on the 13th of January 2022, here at the place. As it is the last meeting of the year, I would like to wish you all a very Merry Christmas and to be safe and be kind. Thank you all very much for attending.